is it time to reclaim the word socialism? Or maybe just to claim it? Because even Franklin Roosevelt was accused of being a socialist back in the day by the Republicans, and he rejected that. He said, no, I'm not a socialist, I'm an American. And this is the American way, and this is the American tradition, and this is the American, Social Security. We're all in this together. It was the nurturing family model of how a country should be run, as opposed to the severe father model. And, we're all in this together. We care about each other. We care for each other. It's our job collectively to be here for each other. Increasingly, though, that word, socialism, democratic socialism specifically, has been used now for the better part of 30, 40 years in Northern European countries. Certainly the Scandinavian countries embrace it with enthusiasm. Yes, Louise and I, we did this show for 2 weeks from Denmark back, 6, 7 years ago, some long time ago. And I had on, a bunch of Danish politicians, Danish news reporters, and everybody was like, yes, we're a democratic socialist country. We have social democracy, I think was the phrase that they used more often than not. And the idea was that, and almost half of the entire GDP of Denmark is in the government sector right now, because the government pays for all of your education all the way up to an MD, and they pay you a couple $100 a month to get that education. In other words, to cover your room and board and your food and your books. They pay for your medical services, and it's quite comprehensive, and it's completely, it's totally comprehensive. They subsidize housing. They subsidize employment. They subsidize employers with, long-term unemployment benefits and other things like that. Now, we subsidize employers here in the United States with food stamps and with housing assistance to low-income people. But I think most Americans don't realize that that is a subsidy to low-wage employers. That people would not work at McDonald's and at Walmart and at 7-Eleven and at fill-in-the-blank. They would not work those jobs if they did not have government support, if they couldn't get food stamps, if they couldn't get housing support, if they couldn't get, Medicaid, if they didn't qualify for cheap or free medical assistance, if they couldn't get those things, they literally could not afford to take those jobs. So these payments that we're providing to working poor people are not subsidies to the working poor, the way the Republican Party likes to characterize them. They're subsidies to the employers, because if those subsidies weren't there, the employers would be forced to offer higher wages because nobody would want to work for them. Because, why work for $7 an hour when you end up in the hole? So, anyhow, I've kind of wandered far afield from my original topic, which is it time to reclaim the word socialism from the dirty word category? Elizabeth Brunig writing about this over at commondreams.org. She says 57% of Democrats polled said they view socialism positively. Only 47% of Democrats view capitalism positively. That's down from 56%. Republicans, 71% love capitalism, and only 16% of Republicans think that socialism is a good thing. But here's the thing, and this really troubles me. I saw this, I've seen this twice over the weekend, both times on MSNBC, but maybe it's just because I watched that more than I watched CNN. But in both cases, I heard commentators say that people like socialism more than capitalism, and therefore, quack, quack, quack. And the problem is that democratic socialism is not anti-capitalistic at all. Democratic socialism envisions a massive role for capitalism in our economy. Basically, the private sector is left as the private sector. All democratic socialism advocates is that the commons, the public sector, should be robust, that it should be healthy, it should be strong, that your ability to get an education should be unquestioned. Your ability to get health care should be unquestioned. Your ability to retire at the end of your work life and live a dignified life to old age and death should be unquestioned. That the right of people to have a successful pregnancy and give birth without fear of death. Keep in mind, the United States has the highest maternal death rate in the developed world. Our maternal death rate is as bad as it is in some of the really underdeveloped and undeveloped parts of Southern Asia and Africa. and presumably parts of South America, although there's not a single country there that is as badly afflicted as in Asia and Africa. But this is not anti-capitalist. Democratic socialism coexists with capitalism. And just this breathtaking ignorance that I'm seeing on the part of mainstream and corporate media commentators saying that capitalism is inconsistent with democratic socialism, it just blows my mind. And I think that it further confuses things. People watch TV and they go, oh, well, you get to pick between socialism and capitalism? Well, yeah, if you want to use Marxist metrics, but, this is not, we're not talking about Marxist socialism. Karl Marx used the word socialism. He should have used the word communism, and later on he did. But democratic socialism is not communism. Yes, communism stands in opposition to capitalism, and capitalism stands in opposition to communism. I get that. I agree with that. But when Democrats are talking about socialism, we are not talking about communism. We're talking about what we already have. America is already a socialist nation. We just do it badly. We have Social Security, but most people actually can't retire on it. We have Medicare and Medicaid, but it doesn't cover all your expenses. It doesn't even cover getting your teeth cleaned. We have, a long-term unemployment, but the Republicans cut it from 2 years down to 1 year, and then they cut it from 1 year down to 6 months. We have job retraining programs, but they're pretty ineffective. They've been largely privatized, and they're being run by scam for-profit colleges. And Trump wants to put all that under Betsy DeVos's purview. So, yeah, we have socialism in the United States. We have food stamps, but, $3 a day, can you live on $3 a day? We just don't do it well. And the countries that do it well have lower maternal death rates, have lower rates of mental illness, have lower rates of death from all kinds of diseases, including heart disease and cancer, have lower rates of suicide, have lower rates of homicide, have less corruption in their body politic. And, we're at the bottom on all of those things, on all the metrics for all those things. And I would argue that and by the way, the countries that do it well have less inequality as well. And we know that as inequality rises, so does crime, so does suicide, so does mental illness, so does teenage pregnancy, so does the rate of sexually transmitted diseases, so does drug addiction. All of these social ills have a almost one-to-one correlation between rising inequality and rising problems. And we have among the worst in the world. The UK and the United States are the worst, because we had Reagan and they had Thatcher. And we both embraced neoliberalism with a gusto. And the consequence of that is, we used to solve this with high tax rates. That's how the way that you challenge unequal wealth distribution, wealth inequality, the way you challenge that is by raising taxes on very, very rich people and on high levels of income. It's real simple. It worked just fine. Before the Reagan tax cuts, the average CEO in America only made 20 times what his employees make. And it was usually his back then, too. Now, you've got CEOs that are making over 300, over 400, over 500 times what their workers are making. That's absurd. You don't have to pay CEOs that much to do the job. American business wasn't crippled or kneecapped or dysfunctional before the Reagan tax cuts. And then the Bush tax cuts, and now the Trump tax cuts. It's just straightforward stuff. If you want to have a country where that works, that has any measure of democratic socialism, and we have a lot of it, then make it work properly. Fully fund the Veterans Administration, fully fund Social Security, fully fund Medicare and Medicaid, fully fund food stamps. Yeah, you might have to raise taxes on rich people to make that happen. You might have to raise taxes on Wall Street to make that happen. That's a good thing. That reduces inequality and makes our society healthier.